Okay, back again. So I was talking about this passage that's been inserted, and why do I know it's inserted? Because I know his voice. I know him. If you know someone really, really close, think about it. If you know somebody really, really close, and someone was reporting on them, studying them, and they came back with you with they would come back with all the things that you have heard them, and you'd say, yeah, that's him. Like say it was me, you'd say, that's Dale, that's Dale. Oh yeah, that's Dale. That's the way he was. Yeah, that's Dale, that's Dale. And then you throw another one in there that has a little commercial for your venture and says, yeah, and he thought that the big problem was nutrition and that you needed to get a balanced nutritional diet. That was essential to spiritual practice. And I'm not saying it isn't, but say that was it. And then someone would say, well, wait a minute, Dale wouldn't say that. That's not how he spoke. That's not who he was. And all throughout the Bible, there are passages like that. There's one right, bam, bam. I'm not going to read the scripture, but it's in Mark, and it's about Peter comes up to Jesus and says, if my brother sins against me, how many times must I forgive him? 7 times? And Jesus says, 70 times 7. You just keep doing it over and over and over. And the very next line, it starts another another view of that, where Jesus is talking about if someone does something wrong in the church, which by the way, there is no church at this point, but it's still, he's saying in the church. He's saying that if you do that, then you go to him with 2 or 3 other people and you question him and then you document. It says you document it. Every word must be documented. And then if he won't change his mind, he won't change his ways, then you cast him out as a tax collector or a publican, which in those days was like scum of the earth, they were saying. This is supposed to be Jesus. And the thing about it is, you could, I get that maybe some people think that the Bible is holy. There's so much superstition around it, like God wrote it. First of all, like God is a person, and that person of God wrote it. Again, you can believe what you want, but for me, I can only say, give me a break. That is so beyond belief, I cannot even consider it. Except if I was just going to be superstitious and say, oh no, that's the way it is. That's the way it is. Don't talk to me. That's the way it is. Don't talk to me. If I don't, I'll go to hell. I'm scared. So I got to believe it. I got to believe. My minister told me this. I did that. But come on. There's a whole parable in the New Testament where another Lazarus, not the one that he raises, who lived his life really, in a nutshell, I'll say, he lived his life really poorly. And at the end, he's got to, he goes to hell for everlasting torture. That is the parable. This is one of Jesus's parables, that he goes to everlasting hell. And the guy's going like, please, can't you help me out? And Jesus is going, no, you can't come out of there. No. And then he says, but I have a brother. I'm just paraphrasing. I can't remember who the characters are because I don't read it. This is nonsense. It's absolute nonsense. Because the brother, he's saying, but my family's living like this. Could you at least warn them so that they don't follow this same path and come the way I have to suffer now? And he says, no. He says they made their bed. They got to lay in it. That's from the Prince of Forgiveness. That is one of his parables. And you can explain that metaphysically. You can explain that a lot of ways. But if you come to me and say, oh, did Jesus say that? I'd say, are you kidding me? I don't know who said that. Maybe John or Mark, or I don't know who said it. Or the Council at Trent in 415. I don't know who said it. But Jesus said that? No. Are you sure of that? I'm saying, well, I'm sure for me. I wouldn't. He teaches forgiveness. He's consistent with forgiveness. If you do not get that, if you start to get that, you have to hold everything accountable. And his concept of forgiveness isn't like forgiving people doing bad things. That's not Jesus' concept of forgiveness. His concept was no harm, no foul. In other words, you don't know what you're judging. It's collective. It's larger than you. And you think you have a right to judge, that you know what's going on. And he's saying, you don't. You don't know what's going on. Other than the Spirit's got it in control. It's under the seal of love and order and oneness. It's under that seal. And therefore, you have to forgive. You have to say, no harm, no foul. I was mistaken. That is true forgiveness. True forgiveness is when you think, someone's doing the worst behavior possible, like they're gross alcoholics and you are an alcoholic, and they're trashing your life, you think, and they're hurting people, and someone's committed suicide because of them, and all kinds of stuff is going on, and you have a right to judge them, and Jesus says, no, you don't. You have to love them. You have to forgive them. You don't know what's going on. At one point, you may know what's going on, and you can see it, and you go, oh, I didn't see that about them. They were your angel working on that, weren't they? I mean, my partner, I fought her like hell all the time because, man, she was like tough as nails, and she stood in the way of all my boundaries, and they eventually started all collapsing because I couldn't live them around her and stay with her and love her, and I wanted to stay around her and love her. I couldn't leave. I finally had to accept that I had to let go of my boundaries. I had a sense what was happening while it was going on, but I didn't know till she died, really. And I said, oh my God, she was sent by God to help me break through all this, wasn't she? I was holding on to things that, I look at her and say, like, people say, like, well, maybe was she mean? Did she refuse to acknowledge her boundaries? Did she trash them? And I'm going, well, it looked kind of like that, but that isn't really her spirit. I really think that the way she treated me was more like she looked at me and she saw who I was in some level and went, oh, silly, beautiful man, you're so beautiful and so great. How could you ever be hamstrung by these beliefs in the boundaries you hold? And it was like she was going, I'm going to do you a favor and I'm going to ignore them. And I was going like, you can't do that. Don't do that. And she was resolute about it. At times she would tell me, she'd say, you don't know how much I love you. Mostly when I was angry about what she'd done, she'd say, you don't know how much I love you. She did. I think I'll do one more video I'm kind of done with this, I think, but I may do one more video, just a short one to close up on this whole idea of Jesus. Okay.